The year was 1979, and the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion was filled with the most powerful people in Hollywood. The Academy Awards were always a night of glamour, a shimmering oasis of dreams where the legends of the Golden Age came to be immortalized. But that night, as the heavy velvet curtains swayed under the soft glow of the spotlights, a sudden, chilling silence fell when the presenter was announced. John Wayne walked out. To the audience, to the millions watching at home, he still looked like a titan of the silver screen, a man who had survived 1,000 gunfights and conquered 100 frontiers. But behind the iconic walk and that legendary silhouette, the reality was a living, breathing nightmare. What the cameras didn't show, what the world wasn't allowed to see, was that Wayne had just come from a hospital bed that smelled of medicine and mortality. He was so thin, so frail, that his once mighty frame was collapsing under the weight of his own legend. To even stand upright for those few minutes, he had to wear a 40-pound lead-lined suit underneath his tuxedo, a hidden metal cage designed to keep his body from crumbling on stage like a house of cards. Every breath he took was like inhaling liquid fire into lungs that had seen too much smoke and too much dust. Yet, when he reached the microphone, he looked at his friends, his rivals, and his fans, and he delivered his lines with that steady, gravelly rumble that defined a century. He smiled at death, and for a moment, death blinked first. But how did the strongest man in America reach this point of no return? To understand the tragedy, we have to look at the moments the world chose to ignore. And the secret war that started decades before the cancer ever took hold. A war that involved names like Stalin, the KGB, and a red ink decree that changed everything. Go back with me now, through the fog of time, to the early 1950s. The world was split in two, divided by an iron curtain and a paralyzing fear of the unknown. While Wayne was building his empire in the sun-drenched valleys of the West, a dark shadow was lengthening across the Atlantic. In the cold, fortress-like walls of the Kremlin, Joseph Stalin was obsessed. To Stalin, cinema was not mere entertainment. It was the ultimate weapon of mass psychological warfare, a way to conquer hearts without firing a single bullet. And John Wayne was the most dangerous ammunition the West possessed. Wayne wasn't just an actor. He was the personification of American defiance, a walking, talking symbol of anti-communist resolve. Stalin saw the way the world looked at the Duke, and he realized that as long as John Wayne stood tall, the ideology of the East would always have a formidable, unbreakable wall to climb. KGB archives, unearthed long after the Soviet dust had settled, revealed a terrifying truth. Stalin had personally signed a red ink decree on a cold Moscow morning. The order was simple, brutal, and final. The Duke must be silenced. This wasn't a movie plot written in a smoky room in Burbank. This was a state-sponsored assassination order against the biggest movie star in the world. In the shadowy hallways of Lubyanka, elite hitmen were being trained. Their target wasn't a politician or a high-ranking general. It was a man who wore a Stetson, rode a horse, and believed in the American flag. They studied his habits, his movements at the ranch, and his vulnerabilities at the studio. The Cold War had officially arrived on the doorsteps of Hollywood, and the man they called the Duke was now the most hunted individual in the free world, a target painted in red. Imagine Los Angeles in 1951. The smell of jasmine, the neon lights of the Chinese theater, and the hum of a city that never slept. But for John Wayne, the air had turned sour. He had been warned by his close friends in the FBI, men who moved in the same secret circles, that something was coming. He didn't hide in a bunker. He didn't run to the desert. In true Duke fashion, he waited. 2 KGB agents, disguised as federal officers with flawless accents and perfectly tailored suits, began their approach. They moved through the city like ghosts, blending into the background of the movie capital. They thought they were dealing with a pampered celebrity, a man who only knew how to fight when the director yelled action. They thought they were the ultimate predators. But Wayne was a creature of pure instinct, a man who had spent his life portraying heroes until the line between the man and the myth vanished. He turned his production office at Warner Brothers into a fortress. He didn't hire standard bodyguards. He surrounded himself with his inner circle of stuntmen and real-life cowboys, men who had stared down charging bulls and falling horses. When the 2 assassins finally made their move, expecting a helpless actor in a makeup chair, they walked into a trap. They found themselves in a room where the air was thick with the scent of gun oil and stale tobacco. They found themselves staring into the cold, unwavering barrels of Winchesters held by men who didn't care about movie credits. Wayne didn't scream. He didn't call the police immediately. He sat there behind his desk, calm as a mountain peak, and looked them dead in the eyes. It was the ultimate showdown, but there were no cameras this time. Only the silent tension of a room where a single breath could trigger a bloodbath. The most chilling part of this archive is what happened next. Wayne, being the man he was, didn't hand them over right away. He wanted to look at the face of the enemy. He took them to a private location. Some say a secluded backlit, others say a quiet bar he owned, and he sat them down. He looked at these young agents, brainwashed by a distant dictator in a land they had never seen, and he saw them as pawns in a game of chess that was far too big for them. He spoke to them with that low, rhythmic rumble of a voice, a sound that carried the weight of the American soil. He told them that in this country, a man is defined by his choices, and that their choice that day had led them to a dead end. He showed them a strange kind of mercy, a cowboy's grace. He didn't use theatrical violence. He used the crushing weight of his presence to break their spirits. He made them realize that they weren't fighting a man. They were fighting a legend that couldn't be killed by a bullet. After the FBI took them into custody, the threat didn't vanish. It just became more subtle, more insidious. There were mysterious accidents on movie sets, brakes failing, lights falling, horses spooking for no reason. There were strange cars parked outside his children's schools and letters that contained no words, only symbols of death. For years, John Wayne lived a double life. By day, he was the smiling hero of the American dream. By night, he was a man sleeping with a loaded Colt .45 under his pillow, listening to the creak of the floorboards, waiting for the ghosts of the Kremlin to finish what Stalin had started. This constant state of alert, this unrelenting pressure of being a marked man. It was a different kind of poison, a psychological fallout that began to wear down even the strongest heart in the West. We often talk about the nuclear dust of Utah, the radioactive wind that swept across the set of The Conqueror and took his health. But we rarely talk about the psychological toll of the secret war. By the time we return to that night in 1979, we see the cumulative effect of a life spent in the crosshairs of history. The cancer was the final enemy, the one he couldn't outrun or outshoot. But as he stood there in that lead-lined suit, defying his own body's collapse, he wasn't just fighting for one last standing ovation. He was finishing the fight he started with Stalin decades ago. He was proving to the world, and perhaps to himself, that even when the flesh is weak and the bones are brittle, the spirit of a legend is invincible. He stared into the darkness of the pavilion and saw the ghosts of the past, and he gave them one last, defiant smile. When the lights finally went down on John Wayne, he didn't leave behind just a list of films. He left behind a testament of pure, unadulterated endurance. Whether it was KGB assassins in the 50s or the Big C in the 70s, he met every challenge with the same unwavering, rock-solid resolve. He was the man who gambled everything on the truth, the man who survived the storm of the century, and the man who became a myth that refuses to fade. As the wind howls through the canyons of time, you can still hear that voice, echoing across the plains of our collective memory, telling us to stand tall, to speak the truth, and to never, ever blink. Stay gold, stay restless. I am Andrew, and this was the secret, silent war of John Wayne. Until we meet again in the archives of history.